I wrote down a few notes earlier. A few of them I was like, oh, that's a pro. Oh, that's a con. And this is one of the ones I thought, oh, that's a bit of a con. And it might not be for everybody, but I certainly have experienced it lots of times. There's definitely in the teaching world, and I think the wider culture, to be honest with you, anyone that knows anything about teaching, is the idea that men need to be a little bit more careful than women. And what I mean by that is there is just a slightly more, it's hard to say, like there's this weird perspective like, oh, men are dodgier. Men are naturally dodgier than women. So therefore, we should be more careful around men than we are around women. And I do think that translates to school. And I've definitely experienced it over the years. And a lot of people have told me, especially early on in my career, not to do certain things that I have literally seen female teachers do, and no one bats an eyelid. And I was always like, oh, that's weird, because I got told that, if a kid comes and wants to give you a hug, that you should absolutely like do anything you can to not be in that situation because it looks really bad. And it always ends with, particularly because you're a man. And that phrase just like haunts me. I don't like that phrase, particularly because you're a man. Nothing should end in that phrase, whether it's something benefiting me or not. And in this scenario, I don't like that connotation. Oh, you're a man though, so it automatically looks dodgier. Oh, I hate the whole situation.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable, right? Because there's so many other things you could say, because you're an X, because you're a Y, because you're a Z, where you would never even fathom saying something like that, because you think, what are you on about? How on earth can you make that kind of generalization about this group of people, that group of people, this group of people? Cool. Well, I'm a male primary school teacher, and you're suggesting just because of that, I'm more likely to do something inexplicable.
Yeah.
And it is horrible, because I've gone through the same training, the same DBS checks, the same everything as my colleagues. And this was summed up because this was a real policy. This was a real policy that I have experienced before in the past, where, again, I'm not saying, my goodness me, I didn't mind doing this, but it was the hypocrisy that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, which was that if the children were getting changed for PE, if you're a male teacher, you're not allowed to be in the room with the children getting changed.
Yeah.
If you're a female teacher, you are.
It's mad,
a real policy in a school. Can we just think about that for a minute? How do you think that made us feel?
Yeah.
Like if it was a policy of no adults allowed in the room for this reason, or no adults allowed in the room on their own, there has to be 2 adults. Why is the gender or the sex of someone coming into it?
That is absolutely terrible. I can't believe a school has had that policy, because again, if we go down the microcosm of social structures route of thinking, what are we teaching the kids there? What the females are inherently safe and men aren't? Like what? Well, that's terrible. Such a good point. That is dangerous, and that is terrible. Like I can't believe that actually happened. I tell you what, it's kind of similar to this, right? And I've told you this story before, and I'm pretty sure you've got a couple of opinions on this, but I'm just going to say it again, right? Because it's one of my first ever experiences inside a school. And I always remember this, and maybe I'm being dramatic because there's another side to it, but I might not be. So I think it was like my first, maybe my second day at this school. And I was super nervous, obviously, and I'm just getting introduced. I'd met the class teacher, and it was that early morning time where in a lot of schools, like the kids play on the playground for a bit before the whistle goes, and they all come in for like morning registration. And I was just kind of sat in the classroom. The teacher was like, right, I need to just go and get some bits, and I've got to go on the playground as well. And you can just stay here. And I was like, okay, just sort of like sat on one of the children's desks. And it was a year 1 classroom, so proper little ones. And these 2 TAs, who obviously didn't know me, right, brought this child in who was crying because she'd fell over outside and hurt her knee, bless her. And they brought her into like this little shared area space that was just kind of off the side of the classroom, in direct view of me, like it was very open. And I'm just sort of sat there, like, I sort of nodded to be like, hello, just to, so they know I'm there. And then what they did was that before they saw me, they were about to leave her there because they were literally just like 10 seconds from coming in anyway. They were just going to go grab somebody, like maybe grab another kid or something, come back in. And they were happily about to do that. And then they both looked at me, and then they stopped and like really, really cringily, obviously, then like changed their minds about leaving her in the room. Bearing in mind, although I'm a stranger, I was still, I was there with my lanyard on and things. Like I was going to be the teacher for that class in my training. And it really made me feel like honestly horrible. It actually upset me a little bit. Because I thought my natural go-to there was, oh, cool, they've just seen that I'm a man, and then just instantly thought, oh, we can't leave him near this kid. And that made me feel horrendous. But I don't know. There's probably more to it. You might want to shut me up. And
No. Listen, here's the thing about anecdotes, and this is something I've learned as well. You know, your reaction to something and your perspective of something is important. It's a part of the picture. It's part of the picture. So the fact you've thought that is usually probably a projection of the general idea of societal expectations of men and women.
I put it on
with
myself
children.
almost.
Like, there's a reason you thought that is because you've lived in that structure. So completely understand what you're saying there. I think it's hard to tell, isn't it, without, you know, if it was a female student who they'd never seen before, because you said yourself they'd never seen you before, would they have still been reluctant to leave a child? Because to be honest with you, we shouldn't be leaving children unsupervised anyway. And if you're unsure about another adult or who they are, it's probably just very sensible to say, oh, actually, okay, you know, we'll be.
I think that's the right answer.
I completely understand.
I think that's probably genuinely what happened. But like you said, because I already have maybe this preconceived idea, almost like I've got to challenge this and show that I'm just a normal person. I just maybe put that on. But, you know, it was an experience nonetheless. And it made me think about that particular element of, you know, the pros and cons of being a man.